I was a bit nervous about doing this interview because he's like a childhood TV icon for me. It's insane to be in studio here with Dave Coulier, who's very well known for Full House. How's it going, Dave?
I'm good, and I'm still in my childhood.
Yeah, well, your comedy is, you know what I love about it is you do clean comedy, which is so rare when it comes to stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and it's kind of, that's just the style I've always done. And many, many years ago when I was first starting, Jay Leno came up to me. I was 19 years old at the Comedy Store.
Jay Leno at 19, wow.
And he came up to me. I was 19 years old, and I just had finished a set at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. And he said, "Hey, you're this Coulier kid." He says, if you work clean, you'll work everywhere. And I noticed you did a clean set. And I said, yeah. And so I really never forgot that. But, I'm not a prude. There's a lot of comedians that I love. I love the Sarah Silvermans of the world and the Sam Kinnisons, Richard Pryors, George Carlins. But that's their style. And my style, I guess, is just kind of always been anybody can come to my show. I was always afraid that I'd walk out and my mom was going to be sitting in the front row and I'd have to throw about 50 F-bombs in some stupid bit that I came up with, so.
And you really started with a lot of impressions. When did your impressions start as a kid?
Oh, I used to do them on my front porch with my brother Dan. We used to call it narrating the neighborhood. And we used to he's like, okay, you take Mr. Hooper and you take Mr. Rondo and, I'll take Mr. Maddox. And we would just sit on the porch and do their voices. So, Mr. Hooper would be on his lawnmower and kids used to always cut across his lawn on their bikes. And he'd be, "You get off my lawn right now. I'm telling you, get off my lawn." So that's what we did. And then we used to lay in our bunk beds at night and do crazy voices. And my dad would run in, "Both of you, stop it. It's midnight, for crying out loud, with the voices and the hand farts. Stop it."
And who knew that you were actually practicing for the career that you would really be doing?
I had no idea. I really had no idea, yeah.
So clean comedy, sometimes people have this perception that it's, to be family friendly, it's going to be boring. That's the perception of it. But it isn't when you watch your act.
Well, thanks. I don't go up there with the idea that I'm going to do a really boring hour-and-a-half set. But if you look at some of the biggest comedians right now in the country, and really, in all of North America, Canada, and the U.S., Jim Gaffigan, Brian Regan. I mean, those guys are squeaky clean, and they're selling out 7,000-seat arenas. So, it's just what it's just there's tons of flavors for everybody. Like I said, I love a lot of comics that, are filthy, but that's just not my style.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to Full House. And when you're on that, Bob Saget is a very known comedian, but he is also known for being very dirty. And that was, I thought, some of the problems and some of the friction that was sometimes there with him in the show versus I would think for you, that would fit into what you're doing sometimes.
Well, I've known Bob many years before Full House, and he was always triple R rated. And I always tell people that Bob is my filthy Jewish sister, and he really is. And so, I give him a lot of credit because we do Full House, which is this very, G-rated family sitcom.
And it seemed to take over because he was well known beforehand, but it just seemed to take over for him.
Well, when you have that many viewers, 25 million viewers watching you every week, it's kind of hard to get away from that persona. And he also hosted America's Funniest Home Videos. So now those shows end and he's got to go back out and be Bob Saget again. So I give him a lot of credit for, staying true to who he is, which is a really filthy-mouthed comic.
How busy were you in those years? Full House and America's Funniest People. How did you even keep up?
I was busy. I was just telling Scott here, I said I was doing 4 shows at the same time while I was out doing stand-up. I was doing the Real Ghostbusters cartoon on ABC and the Muppet Babies cartoon on CBS as well as doing Full House and America's Funniest People. So on Friday night, I used to fly from Burbank, California, from Warner Brothers. I would fly all the way to Orlando, Florida, and do America's Funniest People, and then fly back on Sunday, and then on Monday start back on Full House. So it was a crazy schedule, but when you're first starting out as a struggling comic, you pray for that kind of success.
Yeah.
So you'll never hear me complain.
Yeah. Now you also had to fit in being a dad somewhere in there as well. How did that change things up for you?
Well, it was tough, just because you want to spend time with your kid.
Yeah.
And you're spending time with your sitcom family a lot more than you're spending with your real family. But, that's just the nature of the beast, and you do it and you get through it. And after Full House and America's Funniest People and all that stuff, after those shows all, stopped production, I got to spend a couple of years with my son just, shooting hockey pucks in the driveway and throwing a baseball in the backyard. So, I was really lucky that Full House and doing all those shows afforded me that luxury of, I'm just going to take a couple of years off now and be a dad.
Yeah, and you have been able to be busy and be working all of this time. I wonder if sometimes people think if you're not going at that pace constantly that you're not successful. But for you, you've been able to have some balance in your life.
Yeah, true. I still enjoy the things that I enjoyed before I ever got on television. I still love playing ice hockey. I'm out there every week with my knucklehead buddies. I still play golf. I love flying airplanes. I'm a private pilot. So I enjoyed all those things before I ever got successful or famous. And so I still continue to do all those things now because they're just the things that make me happy. And they're not giving Full House sitcoms out, on the street corner. No, it's not
the same. Well, and it's not the same for sitcoms anymore either.
Yeah, there's very few of them now. You've got 2.5 Men, you got, a few other shows, The Big Bang Theory, and they're expensive shows to produce. And so you've got all these reality shows that are real cheap to produce that, give you stars like Snooki.
Yeah, and they also provided a platform for you. We'll talk about that in just a moment.
Surreal Life.
You were the most normal guy on that show.
That's what everybody said. And how can you not be normal with that cast of characters?
Yeah, I mean, you took it all in stride, though. You didn't get involved with any of it. And you can even understand what some of the people said, like Charo.
Yeah, Charo was like the Energizer Chihuahua. I mean, she was just so much energy. But I will tell you, I didn't know this either, that she was such an amazing guitar player. She was voted as the top guitar player in Guitar Player magazine or something. And we went down and we saw her play, and she plays flamenco, which is really hard.
Yeah.
And she was amazing. I mean, really amazing. Yeah,
How
but
did you
they
even
were
get
all
involved
nuts.
in that show?
My manager called me and said, I have a really weird offer. Would you consider doing this show? And then they sent me, some tapes of a previous season. And I said, this isn't a mean-spirited show. And then I thought about it for a couple of days, and it just became kind of a personal challenge where I thought, I think I can do it.
Yeah.
And so it was 13 days, which was about 12 days too many.
Oh.
And, I still keep in touch with Flav.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a weird experience.
Does it feel like the Surreal Life kind of spun off into Celebrity Rehab? Because a lot of those people ended up there.
Kind of, yeah. The Surreal Life really was kind of like Celebrity Rehab. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done.
So when you came out of it, did it change anything for you? Do you just put that behind you and was like, well, that was an experience?
Well, yeah. I said I will never do a show where I have to live with complete strangers again.
There's one comment at the end. Jordan Knight talks about the Olsen twins and people thinking that they're hot, and there's comments on that. What do you think about all the press that has spun around those two girls who've been in TV since the beginning of time? How do you feel about that and digest that? Because you know them.
Well, I think all the adults on the show, I think we're very, we're very protective of, we still call them the kids.
Yeah.
And, we still all see each other. We still talk to each other. We Twitter, we email each other. And so we really did become this dysfunctional family off camera as well. So you get very protective of people that you really care about. And, on the Surreal Life, when I think it was Jordan Knight said something, and I just thought, okay, that's over the line, and I became very protective, and that's all that was.
It's kind of like telling someone's dad that their kids are hot. Why would you ever do that?
Yeah, it's just weird, It's just, we kind of became these surrogate uncles to all the kids. I remember when Candace Cameron was 10 years old, I took her to Cirque du Soleil. I took her to the circus, and I told her mom, I said, I want to take Candace to the circus, and I picked her up, and Candace still remembers that, and she said that was like the best night, it was so much fun going and seeing the circus with you. And you just have those moments where these kids are all growing up and in front of the TV camera, and it's it's weird.
How does it feel then to be before you're in such a spotlight? Now you're doing a lot of work, but a lot of that work is behind a microphone and doing voiceovers. How much do you love doing that part?
Well, I've always loved doing voices, and I've been able to do it for a long time. What people may not know is Dave Thomas, my good friend, one of the McKenzie brothers. I actually did the voice of Bob McKenzie on the McKenzie brothers.
Nice,
which is
Bob
really
and
good.
Doug.
Oh yeah, Bob and Doug. So I got to talk like this all about beer, eh?
So you know Canada really well then.
Oh, I do.